mentioned, I wanted to start with kind of the journey of PyColorado. There's a lot of effort to get here. And I look out at all of you and I see a lot of that effort, right? Some people walked over from Union Station. Some may have driven down from Boulder. Some came from further abroad. They came from all up and down the Front Range. So we have people from Fort Collins, from from Colorado Springs. We have people from Pueblo. We have people from even further, the western slope, from Nederland, from Carbondale, from all over this great state of Colorado. And then finally, we have some people that really made the journey to PyColorado. They came in from New York. They came in from Chicago. They came in from Ohio. Some folks from San Francisco. So we have this mix of people that have all converged here in Colorado for this very first PyColorado conference. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what I get really excited about, is like this is your conference. Like the fact that you are all here is what makes this such a special event. So with that said, I want to talk a little bit about a different journey. The journey of you all to get here is really what's going to make it special, but there was a lot of journey and effort for Frank and I and for our organizing team to get to this point. So I'd like to go back in time a little bit and just kind of talk through what it took for PyColorado to come to you. And I promise, as to the best of my ability, no one is going to die of dysentery on this journey. So getting started. Frank and I haven't known each other all that long. I don't know if you all have had a chance to meet Frank. Once you meet him, you'll never forget him. Frank and I met just after PyCon 2018, which was held, Frank and I met just after PyCon 2017, which was held in Portland. And we were at a Boulder Python meetup, and we started to talk about PyCon and what a great time we had. And of course, at PyCon, there's a lot of promotion of all these regional conferences that are happening throughout the year. And we started asking ourselves, like, why don't we have one? Like, Colorado's a pretty cool place. Why isn't there a regional conference here? And I mean, it's kind of hard to beat. We've got 300 days of sunshine. We've got 58 14,000-foot peaks to go climb. Denver alone has over 300 pieces of public art. There's an interesting anecdote about that. Grab me some other time and I'll tell you about it. We've got 140 craft breweries in Colorado. There are many, many reasons why someone would want to come and visit. So why don't we have a regional conference? We also have two pretty good sized tech hubs. Denver and Boulder both have a ton of big companies that are either based in even larger market, based in San Francisco or New York, and have opened an office here because they want the talent, they want access to what we have in the Front Range, they want the quality of life. And then there are companies that started up here. There's a vibrant startup community and founder community. And so those two tech hubs feel like they should be a real draw. And furthermore, they're surrounded by spokes of communities that provide even more support. So although those are the two cities that I called out, we have cities up and down the Front Range. Fort Collins has an extraordinary Python meetup. Py Springs has a meetup that happens every 2 weeks. So it's really incredible to see a lot of that enthusiasm all throughout Colorado, all up and down the Front Range. And we have lots of Python users. And this is the piece that Frank and I were really trying to come to terms with. You know, we were sitting over a beer talking about why there wasn't a conference here. And Frank said, well, but how many are there? Like, really? Like, how many Python users are there in Colorado? So, bunch of nerds. This is what you get. We went and crunched some data. And Frank came up with this mind-numbing Venn diagram. So I hope someone can decipher this and explain it to me, because I'm not entirely sure. But what this really told us was, so this was a sampling of 4 different communities from the meetup website. One was Denver, one was Colorado Springs, one was Boulder, and then one was Front Range Pythoneers, which is like sort of a super group, if you will. And so we were trying to understand what was the overlap and how many members were in each group. And the only thing that we could decipher out of this thing was that there's a lot of disparate communities. There's not one dominant community. We're not all based in Denver and then occasionally step out to other places, right? The community is spread throughout the state of Colorado. And so that was kind of the cincher. It was like, okay, now we have to put on a regional conference because we want to bring all these groups together. And this is only a piece of the puzzle, right? There's more groups that we haven't accounted for. So we said, okay, how are we gonna make this happen? Like what are we gonna do to actually deliver an event that we would be proud of? And so we're like, okay, we gotta figure out when during the year we're gonna have it. There's a lot of other conferences to compete with. Venue, where can we have it? God, that seems like it's gonna be expensive. Okay, sponsors can help pay for that venue. And so the list just kept getting longer and longer. Speakers, okay, now you need to bring people either to the conference from other states or you need to bring from your own community and you need to mix those speakers. We want to make sure and include diversity and inclusion as a key tenet of our conference. We want it to be an accepting place. And so this list just kept growing and growing and growing. And we were staring at it like, oh my God, like, how is this all going to happen? Like, how can we bring this together? And so again, we pulled out our engineering hats and flipped them on. And we thought, okay, it's time to make an MVP. Like, we need to really boil this down into just the basics of what's going to make a successful conference. And in doing that, we enlisted the help of other conference organizers. You're going to hear me talk a lot about community throughout the weekend. And it's true, the Python community is unique. There's an incredible sense of fellowship and an incredible sense of wanting to help out other people within the community and other people that are trying to do things across the country. And so we leaned really heavily on people that have done this before. There's a ton of regional conferences, and we literally took something from as many as we could. Started with the code of conduct. Our code of conduct came from PyCon, it came from PyBay. We took those two and sort of merged them into what you'll see on our website today. We took a COC hotline. So I'll talk about this a little more in detail later, but we have a phone number that you can call or text if you need help at any point during the weekend. And that was something we lifted from PyCascades and from Marietta and Thea Valkyrie, who had put it together for that conference. Oh, I'm a bullet behind, I see. We pulled in visa letters from PyTexas. So Dustin Ingram, who I actually don't think has arrived yet, was kind enough to send us a sample visa letter that he used to invite someone from a foreign country to get a US visa. All these artifacts just turned into enablers, right? These were all the things that really allowed us to start checking off the things on that list and feel like we could deliver a real conference. Venue and sponsor guidance, we actually got some help from outside the Python community. So Dino.js is a conference that happens here in Colorado. One of our good friends, Jess West, is one of the organizers of that conference, and she did a phenomenal job of talking us through what venue selection looks like and how to bring on sponsors and what the timing for that looks like. There's a lot of moving parts, and we really didn't know any of them to start. And then finally, Emily Freeman, who you'll actually see just before lunch, she helped draft our very first sponsor prospectus. And in a lot of ways, that was kind of the thing that got us kicked off and running, because now we had something to actually go out and talk to people about. So it felt very much like an open source project. We had all these different components that were coming in from different people, from different conferences, different guidance that we'd gotten, and ultimately we were able to boil it down into the MVP that we actually had to work towards. So I want to talk about what that MVP is. I'm also going to mention some of the things that we didn't quite get to. We had an MVP that we absolutely wanted to achieve. We got most of it. There's some things that kind of fell off the bandwagon. I want to talk about those as well. So the first thing on the MVP was we wanted to have a full day of workshops. I think that happened. There were people that went to the workshops yesterday, I think. So yeah, check mark there. The educational component was a big piece for us. Paul and I were just talking just before the opening remarks about how Colorado in general has a large number of beginners in Python that come to the meetups. And so there's a lot of value in encouraging the educational piece of the conference. It's a great way to get people introduced to the language, although the two talks yesterday were not very introductory. I'll also throw that out. So we wanted to have workshops. That was always in the plan from the beginning. We wanted to have 2 days of talks. We felt like having a one-day conference wasn't quite enough. We wanted people to really have time to interact with the community and to meet and talk with the people that they met and to see them day after day, just 2 days. We decided to make it single track. This was actually a really difficult decision. So we wanted to make sure that we were servicing the data science folks as well as the web folks. Oh, I got ahead of myself. The data science folks as well as the web folks. We wanted to make sure that the talks that we were giving had enough interest to really cover most of the Python ecosystem and most of the people that are in our geography. And so it was really difficult to boil that down into a single track, but ultimately we wanted to do that to get it done. And I think it's gonna be great. I'm really excited about the speakers that we've got lined up. We wanted to really push for speaker gender parity. That was something that was on our MVP. It was one of the important things to us. Unfortunately, we didn't quite get there. We ended up at 1/3, 2/3. So we have 1/3 women and 2/3 men giving the talks throughout the weekend. That's something that we can improve for next year. And then I talked about this piece already a little bit. We wanted to incorporate all the different legs, the 3 legs of the stool, if you will, of Python development. And finally, we wanted to have a venue with character. So I can't be the final judge of that, but I hope that you find the studio loft to have some character. I love that our space is combined, but it's still separate enough that we can have our exhibitors and our breakfast and our talks, and it's a very cohesive environment where you can flow back and forth. So I hope you enjoy it. And finally, we wanted it to be affordable. Not affordable for us, affordable for you. We wanted anyone in Colorado that wanted to come to this conference to be able to afford a ticket. And so we were able to do that with multiple pricing tiers, very similar to what PyCon does. So we had a corporate ticket, an individual ticket, and a student ticket. And the student ticket was only $50. So we were really trying to get as many folks to the conference as possible in an affordable way. Now, I have to admit, we didn't quite get it all, right? There's a few things that did not quite make the cut. And these are things that we absolutely want to bring in a future year. But I definitely wanted to touch on them. So one of them was sprints. This I actually just announced in Slack, I think it was a week ago. It feels like it was like 10 years ago. But sprints, unfortunately, did not come together. We wanted to have 2 days of sprints that were hosted at a venue where there was some basic coffee and refreshments and a place for people to work on open source projects and get to know maintainers of projects. And unfortunately, we just ran out of time and weren't able to make that happen. But definitely look for sprints next year. We wanted to have a family track. One of the great things about a lot of the Python conferences is they take place on weekends with the purpose of allowing people to attend without necessarily having to take time off of work, which I think is an awesome perspective. But on the weekend, that's also the time that most people spend with their family. And so we had an idea to build a family track that would encourage speakers and attendees to actually bring their entire family to Denver and have a list of things to do, sort of their own sort of agenda of things that they could do around town and things that they could engage in Colorado and ways that they could enjoy the weekend while their spouse or significant other or son or whoever it was here attending the conference. So didn't quite make it this year, but we will definitely bring that back. A Swagless Initiative. So has anyone seen Capital One 360 at conferences before? They do a really interesting Swagless promotion where they basically take their entire budget that they use for swag and they agree to donate it to 2 charities that are active in the city where the conference is taking place. And so a lot of sponsors are like, well, how do I engage people then, like if I don't have swag? So what they do is they have people come and vote for which charity they want to give that money to. And so it's a way for them to interact with all of the people at the conference. It's a way for them to get those connections that they're looking for, those potential leads that they're looking for. And it's a way to reduce their carbon footprint, how much they're shipping around, how much money they're actually spending on stuff that very often goes in the trash. So no offense to any swag that might be out there today. And then the final thing was scholarships and financial aid. So we really wanted to have a fund set aside to help people who couldn't even afford the $50 ticket or were coming from a long distance and could use some assistance in terms of their travel and lodging. And ultimately, this is still something that we're going to chase. I think doing this as a first-year conference is challenging because the dollars and cents are really unknown when you first start out. And so I'm really looking forward to implementing this next year as a way to bring some people from faraway places. And then finally, we won a few perks. So we kind of talked about the MVP. We talked about the things that didn't quite make the cut or died of dysentery. And then we also got a few things that are kind of nice to haves that we're excited about. I'm excited because we have all-day coffee and tea. Yeah, I've had like 10 cups this morning, so we're really we're good to go. So I think that was something, although it's a small thing, I think it's something that people really appreciate, and that's ultimately what we wanted to do for you. The second thing on this list is Microsoft's Dni Lunch. So Emily Freeman will actually get up on stage here at 12:10 and talk about what their Dni Lunch is all about and what it's going to look like. Ultimately, Microsoft came in within the last week and said, we want to be involved. We want to be part of PyColorado. We want to help provide a Dni Lunch the first day. And so we are super excited to have them as a partner for this, and it's something that we did not expect to be able to pull off in a week, and it actually got done. So we're very excited about that. And then finally, the +1 tickets. I don't know if anyone noticed the +1 tickets. Well, some people noticed because they bought them. But we had +1 tickets listed on the PyColorado site, and the concept there was that you would buy a ticket, and in buying that ticket, you would get a second ticket that you could give to someone that couldn't afford to come otherwise. And so ultimately, we ended up with 5 +1 tickets, and those 5 +1 tickets got given to Python students at Devitry, which is a school here in Denver that's teaching Intro to Python. Are there some Devitry students here? Yes. Thank you. Thanks for coming. So all this to say, I sincerely hope that you enjoy the weekend that we've put together for you. We're extremely proud and excited about it, and I can't wait to talk to some of you and meet some of the folks that I haven't seen before. So thank you for coming. Now I want to get into a little bit of the housekeeping. So for the schedule, we have 16 speakers over the course of the next 2 days. There was one update to the schedule made last night that I just wanted to bring your attention to. So Christy Worth is going to be speaking today at 3:50 p.m. And the lightning talks are moved to tomorrow at 3:40 p.m. So that's the only schedule adjustment. The other thing I'll add is that our schedule is only on the website. We don't have any printed programs, but it's super mobile friendly and easy to use. So check there for the latest times. Each talk today will be 30 minutes, followed by a 10-minute break. So there'll be 10 minutes where the speakers are changing over. And then the 2 keynote talks will be 40 minutes. So Q&A. Q&A today is going to be at the speaker's discretion. So if there's time at the end of their talk and they would like to take questions, we're going to have a handheld mic that we put in the center aisle. And so you're welcome to come up to that microphone and ask questions. The one thing I will say is when you get in front of that microphone and you're ready to say something, please remember to phrase your question in the form of a question. And credit for that goes entirely to Brandon Rhodes. I could not come up with that phrasing myself. I already talked about the Microsoft Diversity and Inclusion Lunch that's happening today. As I said, Emily Freeman will kick that off on stage here at 12:10, so make sure to be in the audience before we head out. And then we're going to wrap up at 5:40 p.m. This is both days, so we'll wrap up today at 5:40 p.m. and we'll wrap up tomorrow at 5:40 p.m. Geography. So I want to bring your attention to the hallway over here. At the end of that hallway, we have a mother's room. So if we have any nursing mothers, please feel free to take advantage of that. There's a comfy chair and a table in there. And then we also have a refrigerator where we can store milk. So please take advantage of that if you need it. Bathrooms, if you haven't already found them, are out this way and down the hallway. So if you go out and past the elevator where you came in and head down the hall, we have both gendered and ungendered bathrooms over there. If you continue down that hallway, you'll find yourself in the loge. That's a fancy way to say a big foyer full of tables. And so in the Loge, it's really a place for you if you need to take a break or you need to plug in your laptop, you need to answer some emails. We've got a few power strips set up there, so feel free to take a break and head over there and sit down. And then come on back for the talks, of course. And then the speakers lounge. So for speakers, if we haven't already talked about it, there is a dedicated speakers lounge that's down one floor. If you have any questions about how to get there, just grab Frank or myself or any staff member. And then I wanted to talk about some of the community pieces. I warned you. I warned you I was going to use this word a lot. So I want to talk about how to make this a really successful weekend for all of us. So the first thing is, please silence your cell phones. It's not a huge deal, but it's always nicer as a speaker to not be distracted by that. So please. I talked about the Code of Conduct hotline earlier. This is the phone number. The phone number is also on a couple of these stand signs. I don't know if it's on, I don't think it's on this one. It's on one of the other ones. If you need help at any point throughout the weekend, call this number or send a text. And this will actually ring a few of our Code of Conduct staff members who will answer the phone, find out what's wrong, and help you. You can also send a text, like I said. The Code of Conduct staff member that's on duty is actually going to be wearing a ranger hat, like a, right there. That's a ranger hat. Questions or feedback on Slack. So Frank and I are basically checked out of email at the current point. So if you need something that's not urgent, that's not not hotline worthy, please reach out on Slack and we'll try to answer those questions as quickly as we can. I also wanted to talk about the Pac-Man Rule. So this was brought up in the Slack channel and I was really glad to hear it. Eric Holscher, who was the founder, one of the founders of Read the Docs and Write the Docs, came up with this rule a number of years ago, and I think it's a great mentality to take into a conference like this. So the idea is if you imagine Pac-Man, I should have put a Pac-Man logo on the slide. If you imagine Pac-Man with his open mouth, picture that as your group of people that you're standing around talking to. So we all tend to stand in circles when we talk, when we're having a conversation, and those circles tend to be closed circles. Once you recognize that and you see it, if you can take the opportunity to step to one side and open a space, that really opens the opportunity for someone to come in and join that conversation and engage in whatever discussion you're having. So I encourage you to recognize and follow the Pac-Man rule where you can. Finally, on community, I wanted to talk about the food topic in Slack. So another way that we want to help people interact and meet new folks is to make sure that they have someone to eat with, whether it's at lunch or it's at dinner or it's after hours. And so there's a food channel in Slack, and the purpose there is really kind of open form, but it's a way for you to post where you're going if you want to bring some people along with you, or if you're looking for somewhere to go for dinner, post in there as well. It's just a way that we can all kind of coordinate and try to find places for everyone to eat. And then my final note is on social media. So there's two pieces I want to tell you about. We have a Google Photo Share, which is photos.pycolorado.org. The photos that are in this album may be used for social media, so that's worth keeping in mind. And the other thing I want to point out is that there are some folks wearing red lanyards around the room. And so the red lanyard means stop. It means those folks would prefer not to have their photo taken. And so please don't photograph anyone with a red lanyard, and please, please don't upload any of those photos to the photo doc. Finally, on social media, we are PyColorado. We are also hashtag PyColorado. So if you need to tweet at us to tell us something, please use @PyColorado on Twitter. If you want to talk about the conference or you want to share what's going on, please use hashtag PyColorado. And then finally, I wanted to take just a quick minute to thank all our sponsors. They're a big reason why we've been able to do a lot of the things that we've done with PyColorado. So first off, Summit sponsor Cuddlesoft, we couldn't have done it without them. They have been an organizing force throughout the last year. So let me get a round of applause for Cuddlesoft. And then we have two peak sponsors, Twitter and Heroku, both of which are roaming around and out in the lobby, so please stop in and see those folks as well. Twitter is a local company. They have an office up in Boulder that we've used for quite a few meetups, so they're a great member of our community. Josh, it's great to see you. And then Heroku, actually all of our infrastructure runs on Heroku. So our website, our code of conduct line, all runs on Heroku. They agreed to come in as a sponsor as well, and they've been great. So round of applause for the peak sponsors. And then finally, Linode. Linode is our front range sponsor. They're also set up in the lobby. They actually do have some like top-notch swag, so I would definitely recommend stopping in and seeing them. So a round of applause for Linode as well. And then finally, I want to take a minute to thank the PSF. So the Python Software Foundation is the organizing force behind PyCon US. They are also an organizing force behind a number of other initiatives very focused on education. They provided a grant for PyColorado based on the program that we put together with the talks, with the educational component. And so ultimately, we couldn't have done this without their help and support. So a big thank you to the Python Software Foundation. And so that's a perfect lead-in, because I have the great pleasure of introducing our first keynote. So Eva Jodlowska is the executive director of the PSF. She's been with the Python Software Foundation since 2012, and prior to that, she assisted as a contractor. Her responsibilities include giving direction and leadership to the foundation, working with the board of directors on long-range strategic planning, and overseeing financial and program operations, just to name a few things. She's also a super nice person to talk to. So I encourage you to say hello to Eva if you see her walking around.